I've coached hundreds of men in my private coaching program, and luckily for you guys, I've identified 3 of the most common mistakes guys repeatedly make that cause them to stay single, sexless, and frustrated in their dating life. Number 1 is the helicopter. So Ben is one of the guys in the program, and early on he was in this interesting situation where his cousin actually set him up on a date with her friend who was super hot. He showed us the photos on the call. Super hot girl. He was a bit nervous, a bit intimidated by her looks. He was like, man, I hope I don't mess this up. But he shows up on the date. He sets it up at a coffee shop. They sit at the cafe, sipping coffee for 2 hours. He said the conversation's good, it's flowing, there's no awkward silences. So he thinks the date went well, he's excited to see her again, but then she doesn't respond to his text. And he's like, David, what the f***? This is the exact type of girl I want to date. What happened? And I'm trying to figure it out. So I ask him, like, what's something that maybe you didn't do perfectly on the date? And he's like, well, I didn't really like flirt or tease her that much. It didn't seem like there was too much sexual tension. So maybe that was something. And I can totally relate. Like, there's definitely dates I've been on in the past where the girl was really hot. Maybe I thought she was even out of my league at the time. And because I was so intimidated, I always like played it safe in the conversation. I was too afraid to tease her or to make it sexual. All right, let me give you a quick analogy. Let's say I'm trying to go from my house to the gym. Point A to point B. Well, I could have someone pick me up in a fucking helicopter and take me there, and that'd be dope. Or my buddy could come over and pick me up in a little wheelbarrow and wheelbarrow my ass over there. It would suck. I'd be sweaty. It would take forever, but I would still get from point A to point B, right? Well, it's kind of the same on a date. You're trying to go from point A, not knowing a girl, to point B, having created some attraction, and she wants to see you again. So, Reddy, here's the thing that I realized. Having really good game and flirting really well on a date is kind of like taking the helicopter ride. It's dope, it feels good, but it's not really necessary to go from point A to point B. Like, I could hop in that helicopter and they could drop me off at the golf course instead of the gym, and even though my flirting and my game was on point, I'm still not gonna get a second date. So Reddy, here it is. Here's the thing you have to do to get from point A to point B, even if you're intimidated, you're a little nervous, and your game's not on point on the date. Because I've had plenty of those dates, whether I was tired or intimidated, but I still got the girl back to my place and we continued dating after. What you have to do is never stay in the same environment for more than 30 or 45 minutes. So we're sitting here at this cafe and the girl's across from me and we're there for 2 hours. It doesn't matter how good the conversation is, it's gonna start to feel stale and boring, like we're in interview mode. But instead, if they had grabbed the coffee to go and he had been like, hey, let's take a walk around downtown or around the park while we sip this coffee, it would already just feel exciting even if the conversation sucked. Then maybe you finish the coffee, not gonna dump the coffee out and break my laptop, but you're like, hey, now let's hop over to this bar that's nearby and grab a drink there. And then after that, it's also gonna be a lot more natural to say, hey, do you wanna come back to my place? I'm having a good time, because you guys are already moving from point A to point B to point C. If you just sit in the same environment for 2 hours, even if it's a bar and you're having drinks and you're like, oh, now you wanna go back to my place, it still feels like this really big deal. Also, when you're walking around and moving locations, it's gonna be easier to physically touch versus if you're sat across a table the whole time. Where my go-to date is always meeting for a drink, sitting at the bar, but before we finish that first drink, already getting the tab from the bartender and telling the girl, hey, let's hop to this other bar across the street. It's really cool. 45 minutes bar A, 30 minutes bar B, then maybe back to my spot. Now, real quick, hold up. The guys in my Beast Dating coaching program, sometimes they make mistakes like this, right? But that's the whole value of the program. We're able to identify these mistakes so they do not repeat themselves again, or a lot of times when the guy's breaking down what he's gonna do on a date, we catch the mistakes before they even happen. And that's what allows us to get consistent results like this.
During the program, my dating life has escalated quickly. Currently, right now, I'm seeing one girl fairly consistently. Things are getting somewhat serious. She checks a lot of my boxes, if not all of them.
Before I joined the program, did not have a whole lot of options. It got off to a really hot start. I've kind of had to dial it back because it ended up being a little bit too much. At one point, it was like 3 or 4 dates a week.
We've helped hundreds of guys just like this take their dating life from 0 to the point where they're consistently dating the exact types of girls that they want. Basically, the way it works is that every week the guys have access to 5 live video coaching calls with myself and the other coaches we've brought on board. Not to mention, when you join the program, you're also getting access to this whole community of men that are working together to level up their entire lives, not just their dating lives. And that creates this big brotherhood effect where you see the other guys winning, and that motivates you to take your life to the next level and take more action as well. So if you want to join up, just go to beastcoaching.com or click that first link in description to learn more, see more testimonials, and apply now. All right, number 2, Ultimate Doom. So this one is a wild story that just happened with my man Jake, and it's gonna seem a bit crazy, but listen, because you've probably done the same thing even though you haven't realized it. So Jake's been on 4 dates with this girl. He likes her. The only odd thing is that They've had sex in her car 2 times, but she's always avoided going back to his place. Now, it was starting to bother him, so he was gonna have a conversation with her about it, but then on the 5th date, she agreed to go mini golfing, and then after that to go back to his place and cook dinner, so he thought it was all good. So they go to mini golfing, date seems like it's going well, and then while they're driving back to his place, they took separate cars. She sends him these messages. So this is her text. Hey, I've been thinking about it, and honesty is the best policy. I don't feel comfortable coming over yet. I'd like to have some more dates, doing things and talking first. I'ma head home. I'm still not feeling the best and get some rest, but perhaps we can plan a lifetime pool date soon if you want to hang out. Can I call you later? You're comfortable hooking up with them in your car but not coming back to his place? What? Also, she literally just flaked mid-date. They were hanging out, and instead of driving back to his place, she just bounced. So my man says, okay, so when do you want to talk? I'm not mad, I just want to talk because this is confusing, LOL. We can do the pool later on. Tomorrow we can talk. I need to rest. I'll be honest, this is really confusing. Hey, just want to make sure I'm clear. I'm on your side, and I genuinely want to get to know you more too. Let's talk this out tomorrow. I hope you feel better. Sounds good. I feel like we couldn't really talk about what just happened, but I'm on your side. Just hard to talk in mini golf with all the noise. I also wanted to tell you something. What time can we talk tomorrow? And he went down this really dark path where, like, clearly she did something fucked up and weird, but he was texting her like he was the one who messed up. Like,
It's okay, we can talk whenever. Like, you're fine. It's nothing you did. I just want to talk. I just want to tell you something, man.
and honestly, the texts get worse. I'm not even gonna show you the rest of them, but he went like full-on simp mode. But hold up. I'm not gonna shit on him because this is something all of us do. We've all been there. There's been a girl who, I've seen for 3 or 4 dates or maybe even a month or 2, and she starts to pull away. She starts to push us away. And then in my head, all I can think about is,
I need to do anything possible to avoid losing this fucking girl.
like, all logic goes out the window and our only goal becomes, we must avoid the ultimate doom of losing this girl. That would be the worst thing that could happen to us. And at that point, it's like they could do anything. They could flake on the date. They could flake mid-date. They could be texting other guys in front of our face. They could literally take a knife and stab us in the back. And we'd be like, hey, don't worry about the knife. It's not a big deal, but like, when can you take it out? And maybe like, I'm free all day tomorrow if you could come take it out. The lesson here is that losing a girl is far better than losing all self-respect for yourself. And in these situations, even if the girl stays around when you're basically just like begging to hang out with her, well, what precedent have you set? You've now created the dynamic that she can do whatever she wants, and it's actually your fault. It's my fault that you're a bad person, and I'm always gonna be the one that takes the blame. She will have zero respect for you even if she stays. And this girl didn't stay, right? Eventually she was like, all right, this is too much for me, I'm out. You also have to realize it is perfectly okay for girls to get mad at you. If a girl does something weird, you need to call her out on it. In that moment, I would have picked up my phone, dialed her up, and been like, hey, like, what's going on? And left it on her to explain herself because she's the one that did the weird shit, bro. Number 3, never save a hoe. So my man Tommy, he was actually part of the original Beast Dating Coaching Program like 2 or 3 years ago. And by the end of it, he had met this girl. They were dating exclusively. He was super happy. Then about 3 months ago, we get a message from him and things have taken a bad turn. They've taken a bad turn. So he starts to open up to us about the relationship, and I'm gonna read just a few things that went down. At one point, after the first date, she sent him an angry text because he didn't text her back, like getting mad at him. Then she was pushing him to be exclusive while posting on her social media about other guys she was going on dates with. But he thought he could save her. He thought he could save the hoe, right? So he committed to her. They went exclusive. It got toxic. He always had bad anxiety. He started simping, even though she was doing sketchy things like going through his phone when he wasn't around, looking at his DMs. They broke up. She blamed it all on him. Then they'd get back together. And ultimately, she ended it and cut off all communication because he wasn't able to unplug himself from the whole matrix. Fast forward to now, he rejoined the program. He was broken at first, but over time, he realized the bad qualities she had that he wouldn't want in a future girl. He realized the things he did wrong, and ultimately now he's regularly dating new girls, and he's in a much better spot. So give it up for Tommy for the comeback. But I can deeply relate because I did the same thing with my second girlfriend. Bunch of red flags. She wasn't a good person at the time because of her own personal trauma. She put everything on me. I felt anxious the whole time, but I was attracted to her. I thought she was hot. The sex was good, and I was like,
It's all right, I'm gonna help fix her. I'm gonna figure her out. I'm gonna save the hoe.
I didn't save the hoe, right? It was an ugly year of breaking up and getting back together. I was super distracted that whole time, not making enough progress in other areas of my life. And that's the lesson, man. A lot of times we will look at women as the ones who are vulnerable to being part of an abusive relationship and losing all of her self-esteem to a guy who's abusive to her. And that does happen, but it also happens with men, right? It happens differently because they're not going to be physically abusing us or intimidating us, but they can take us down these take a year off of our life, taking us down these deep, ugly rabbit holes where we think we're going to be able to pull her out and make her healthy again. And that's why it's important to realize that getting the girl is not always a W. Sometimes getting the girl actually ends up being a big L. Avoid picking the wrong girls, man. Yeah, 1 red flag, 2 red flags, maybe it's not the end of the world, but when it gets to the point where it's like so in your face and every one of your friends and family are kind of worried about you, you have to leave that. Otherwise, you're going to cut off a year of your life, man. It's not worth it. Now, a big part of attracting the right girls is always staying in a masculine frame of mind, and that is why I recommend you watch this video next. It is about the masculinity crisis and what you need to do to claim back your masculinity in 2023. So check that out, and if you're new to the channel, click down there to subscribe because I drop 2 new videos every single week and you don't want to miss them. I'll talk to you in the next one. Stay beastly.